This is a tutorial to aid students in designing their desktop lamp in Fusion 360. You can see we have some prototypes here that have already been made, and this is a prototype that I've made this morning, and I'm going to go through the process of how I designed the light fitting and the profile around the light fitting, as well as bringing the design into Slicer for Fusion 360. So a quick overview of that process, or of these designs in the programs themselves, can be seen here. So this is the profile, or the light shade itself, as can be seen here. And I have drawn it in two parts. We have our light fitting here and the desktop lamp itself. So what I'm going to do here is just minimize this for a moment, move it over to the side, and I'm going to create a new design. Now I've got this nice blue background here. You guys can mess around with display settings, and I have Tranquility Blue, whereas I think initially you will have I'm looking for default photo booth. Maybe photo booth is a bit clearer for now. So we're going to create a new sketch on the front plane here, and I'm going to start off by using the dimensions on OneNote that are in here. So if you zoom in on this section, you can see all of these dimensions are here. So I would go back into Fusion 360 and create a 2-point rectangle. There is a shortcut right here for that, and it is going to be 14 wide by 70 high. That's the first part of our rectangle, or of our light fitting, excuse me. So hit R on the keyboard, shortcut for this 2-point rectangle, and I'm going to type 1 and 5. Now it's important to get the distance from the top to this little flange that goes around the light fitting here. So I'm just going to hit D on the keyboard. That's the dimension tool. You can also find it over here. Sketch dimension. Click on this point up here and the top point. So if I zoom in, this top point here. The distance is 25. Perfect. Now next thing I want to do is create another rectangle, 2-point rectangle down here, and it is going to be 5 tab 30. Excuse me. And let's have a look at our example. Perfect. That's all we need for now. So this is half of the light fitting. I'm going to revolve this now just so you can see how it looks overall, or sorry, when it looks as an actual light fitting. Now one thing I have neglected to do was create our circle here. So we're going to create a 2-point circle from here. And light bulbs come in all shapes and sizes, but I'm just going to go up 50 millimeters. That's approximately the size of the light bulb I've used myself in my first prototype. And there we go. I'm going to create a line. That's L on the keyboard from top to bottom. I'm going to trim that off later. Escape. And I will go in here to my trim tool, and I've just trimmed all that off. Okay, there we go. Good. Now I'm getting a little warning in the corner here However, this hasn't caused me any problems in the past, so we'll just keep going. So I'm going to stop the sketch and create a revolve. Here we're selecting all of the things we want to revolve, all of the shapes, and we need to select our axis next, and our axis is this line here in the center. It's revolved my light fitting and my light bulb around the center axis. Click OK, and if I click on my bodies over here, I can click once, leave it a second, and click twice, and you can rename the body. I'm just going to call this light fitting. Now, it's not beneficial for me to have the body on at the moment, or visible. So what I'm going to do is turn off that body and open up my sketches here, make sure I can see my sketch. And now that I have that light fitting, I'm going to create a profile similar to, actually just over here, similar to this shape. So if we want to reference back to the original, we've created our light fitting, turn it off, and now we're going to do the body all around the light fitting. To make it a little bit more easier to see, we go into our visual style here and wireframe, and let's see, turn on the body, and you can see what we're doing there. Now, next up, what I will do is create a new sketch. I'm zooming right in to this point here. Now, it's good to go on to grid and snaps and make sure you've snapped the grid set. I'm going to click on 2-point rectangle. It should snap to that point. Oh, I think what happened there, let's see. Stop sketch for a moment. Made a little bit of an error there, let's see. So that's my original sketch. I'm going to create a new sketch. There we are. Perfect. Now we're good to go. So 2-point rectangle. We're on a new sketch here. And zoom right in. This is going to be 20 tab 2. And you'll see why we need this little piece a little bit later on. So it's quite important to get a feeling for size here, and basically the size of our final lamp, our desktop lamp. So what I'm going to do is from the very bottom on the center axis here, I'm going to create a 2-point rectangle, or on the keyboard, click here, move up, and it's going to be 100 wide, tab 300 high. So it's about as high, this lamp we're making is about as high as a standard ruler, a 30 centimeter ruler. Now, to make things a little bit clearer to see, I'm actually going to click on, if I double click on this rectangle and go to construction, it'll just create a little construction box that I can reference when creating my design. Or my profile, should I say. Next up, 2-point rectangle. Same thing again. So that is 100, tab 300. And if I double click, it'll select the whole rectangle, right click, construction. It is debatable. The second rectangle here may not be needed, but it gives you a feel for the size of our final product. So it's going to be enclosed within the shape. You can go bigger, we could go wider, it depends on the design you're making. You can also go smaller. Now, next thing we need to do is to create our profile. I'm going to use the spline feature here, or the spline tool, fit point spline, and to create something similar to what we have over here, I'm just going to start in this bottom corner, or at this stage you can kind of freestyle things. Now I don't really need my first sketch, so I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to turn off my light fitting, and to make things a bit easier I'm going to move my dimensions to the side. Don't need them right now. Okay, hopefully you can see that this is the bottom right hand corner of our rectangle. Actually, I'll leave my original sketch on. It's a little bit clearer. So, spline, fit point spline. Now we're creating a rough line here. You can see it starts to curve as we go along. And I can make all sorts of shapes here. It's just quite important that I overlap, while I eventually overlap this rectangle in here. Just going to go with this for now. And I might mix it up for this shape. Just make it a little bit different from my last one. There we go. So this is, so if I hit return now, that'll show you the shape I've gone for. Not sure if I like that shape, so what I'm going to do is move some things around here. I can click on these little nodes and move things around. That's starting to look a little bit better. Or if I click on the line, all these little green handles are displayed. Or click on each point is easier, and then you can actually manipulate the entire shape. Okay, you can play around with that. I don't want to waste a huge amount of time on this right now, but I am relatively happy with that for now. So I'll return or hit escape. There we go. Next thing I want to do is click on that line itself. It will turn blue, and go to offset. Now we'll move out in this direction, and we're going to offset a line basically as far as you need to until you overlap this rectangle. Now I recommend you need to overlap this rectangle here, and the thickness of your material here really needs to be about 20 millimeters. Now see what happened there, the line moved over to the other side. So when we're moving out in this direction, we actually have to type -20. Okay, that looks good to me. There's enough room here for the light fitting, as in this line is not overlapping the light fitting itself. If we turn it on, you will see, and we click OK. Now we almost have a profile that we can use. What we need to do is close up this shape. So if I hit L on the keyboard, the line tool, click from here to here, and from here to here, you can see now I've actually closed up this shape and it's turned to a beigey color. That means it's a face that we can work with. So stop the sketch, and what we want to do is create a revolve of this rectangle here. Now we could have trimmed off all this excess here to turn it all into one shape, but it's not exactly necessary right now, so I'm just going to click on this shape here, click on this shape, and click on the profile, and I'm going to revolve all of that. Create, revolve, select my axis, just click exactly in the middle here, and let's zoom out. Okay, this is the shape I've ended up with. Now, bear in mind you can go back and you can edit the sketches. For example, if I turn this off, you can edit the sketches here to change your profile. So you can change the sketch, and when you do, it'll update the body that was created. So you can see body 2. If I click once and then click again, I can rename it. This is my desktop lamp. With my light fitting inside here, you can just about see. There we go. There we go. And if I go back into my sketch here, I'm going to change it around to show you that feature. Edit sketch. And I'm just going to extend this little line here. I'm going to draw a line from here all the way across. Escape. Good. So that means if I move anything along this line here, this profile will automatically close. So let's see what happens. Stop sketch. And there we go. We've modified our feature. I think that's looking a little bit more interesting. And I think we will go with this for now. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to bring this into Slicer for Fusion 360. Now I'll show you in class in relation to getting this feature here, or this little tool, or this add-in for Fusion 360. You can just search Slicer for Fusion 360 and it's a download. Now it can be opened up as a separate program by itself, and you can import this this body here, this desktop lamp that we need. So you just save it as an STL, and then you can import it into Fusion 360. However, because I've added Slicer for Fusion 360 to my desktop program here, I can just click on the shape that I want, and I can open this body in Fusion Slicer for Fusion 360. So click on the body, and there we go. There it is. Now, interesting, it actually brought in the light fitting. This hasn't happened to me before, so let's see why that happened. Okay, we don't need that light fitting, the little blue section that's in the middle. So I'll close down the program for a second. And I think what happened is I selected both by mistake. So the problem there was I clicked on the object rather than clicking on the object or body over here in the menu, and that is a better way to do it. So make Slicer, click on what you want, the lamp, and OK. Here we go. Now, navigating this program can be a small bit tricky or a little bit glitchy, but stick with it and you'll get a feel for it. So what I want to do here is I want to create a new sheet setting. These are the manufacturing settings here. So you can see I've created some of these before. I've got different sheet sizes for the school laser cutter. However, what I want to do right now is create one from scratch for you guys, so you can do the same yourself. And unnamed 3, I'm going to call this desktop lamp, or actually IMCC laser bed. And set my units, so you can just copy the same thing that I'm putting in here. 600 wide by 400 high. Excuse me, I got that back to front. 400 high, 600 wide, and the thickness would be 3 mil plywood or acrylic or whatever material you want to use. And so this is setting the material that we're going to laser cut. Now the slot offset, I found that this slot offset, which is 1/4 millimeter, tends to be a little bit tight. So at the moment we will go with 0.5 millimeter, unless I change you to, unless I tell you to change that up to a different size after we've experimented a little bit. Click done. Now I have created that sheet, however I just need to select it in here, IMCC laser bed, change my units again, and it's incredibly important that you click original size here, so you can see that that's the same size as what is in Fusion 360 over here. My construction technique, there are loads of different options here. You got stack slices, but that would use up a huge amount of material. Maybe it's a good way to recycle some cardboard that was going to go into the skip. And also bear in mind, some of these shapes you can, when it comes to laser cutting, you can put them inside. The smaller circles can go inside the bigger circles here. That's called nesting. However, right now we're going to use our radial slices. Beautiful. Now, you guys are going to be constrained to using 2 sheets of plywood. Now, the nesting, and the nesting is the arrangement, the nesting is how all these pieces are arranged together. That's a little bit better English right there. And we will have the option later to move all these pieces a little bit closer, so we're not wasting all of this grey material in the background. So what I have here would fit on 2 sheets of plywood, sheet 1 and sheet 2. I'd actually just later on in the laser cutting program, I'd move this up to here. So this is actually pretty fine. Now you can move these guys around by clicking on the shape and moving it up and moving it down. One thing that you need to pay attention to is this little line here. If I zoom in, can't zoom in, but just right beside the tree you can see we got a little line sticking out here of material, and we don't want that. So what I will do is click on the little piece here where our light fitting is going to be. You can see this is it up here, and I'll move it up just a tiny bit until on the right hand side, just here, you'll see it disappear. And once that disappears, that's exactly what we want. So actually looking at this shape, I think it would be nicer with a few more upright ribs. So what I'll do is I'll click on by count over here, and I'll actually have to change this again. Click back to the default setting where it was. So anyways, I'll just go to 10 radial slices. It's getting a bit excessive here maybe. But I think by the time we move all these pieces together, we still should be able to fit all of this on 2 sheets of plywood. I'm going to move some of these circles inside here, for example, to save on material. That's looking much better to me. Looks like by the time you put the light fitting in here, we get a nice effect shining out through these ribs. And remember, we got loads of room to put in some pretty funky, kind of industrial looking light bulbs that are quite in vogue right now, are quite trendy. So last thing I need to do is click on this shape, move this up just a little bit, and you can see that that little piece has disappeared, so that's perfect. And we are good to go. So I'm going to click Get Plans. The file type is DXF, millimeters. That's cool. And we can export to my computer. I'll just put it in here for now, or maybe your 10-dimensional design. Create a new folder. It's always good to be organized. Desktop lamp. And this is going to create a zip file of desktop lamp 1. And there we go. So what I have there now is I have a file with all of these pieces here that can be laser cut on the college laser cutter. It will just take a little bit of manipulation of moving around all of these little ribs here, and these horizontal sections as well, so the vertical sections and the horizontal sections. And as you can see, which is pretty cool, you can see we have all of these little notches are all numbered, and that will aid in the assembly of the lamp. So we're going to end up with a version of this shape. Very, very similar to what we have here. And that is the end of the tutorial. Apologies that it's a little bit long. There was a lot of information to cover in there. You may even hear some birds singing in the background here. It's a nice, lovely sunny afternoon here in Perth. And yeah, best of luck with your designing.